What's up, everybody? This is Low Hanging Fruit. I am Charlie Marlow. That is the great Brenden Schaeffer. We took last week off. I was out of town, but we're back. And oh, what a time to be back, Brenden Schaeffer, because dare I say, these St. Louis Cardinals, could they be kind of good? What do you think?
They look good. I think maybe that's what they needed is us to take a week off from the podcast, hold them accountable by not even talking about them for a week, and then off they go, winners of 8 of their last 10. As we sit down here to chat on what is it Wednesday night? Wednesday night,
Feels like Keith Chuck. What day is it? Tuesday? It's
a
uh
classic,
it's
a
Wednesday night.
classic.
Okay. So look, you have the really bad weekend against the Brewers, but then it ended on a nice win on the Sunday, and then you roll into the Angels and you win that series, and then the Bo Sox come to town and you win that series. And I know a lot of people, you got to find something to complain about. So it's like, hey, they can't finish off, they can't sweep anybody. Oh, here come the Orioles. The Orioles are really good. The Cardinals are going to get smoked in this series, and the exact opposite happens. And then they take the one thing that we can complain about, Brendan, which is they don't sweep anybody, and they throw that narrative away. So you got to love it. The Cardinals, they're feeling it. They're coming back in some of these games. Like, we're starting to see an offense that I think most people thought, hey, this would be a pretty dang good offense. Brendan, we're seeing these things. Finally, it took a month or so.
Yeah, I think back to a couple weeks ago at this point, Kyle Gibson was the starter, and it was during that, I want to say it was during the 7-game losing skid or right up against the beginning of it, where he was asked about, hey, guys are kind of going through it. You guys are kind of struggling offensively. You're not a hitter, but there in the Cardinal clubhouse, no hitters were around. And so we're going to ask you about it because you're the guy that's standing here. But he kind of took it upon himself to sort of go to bat for the position players and say those guys are good. They're going to come around and something he said, like at the time, it felt a little bit silly, a little bit presumptuous. But he said, there's a lot of teams out there that are going to be glad that they played us over the first 40 games of this season. And then there's a lot of other teams that aren't going to be as excited to play us over the next 120. And it was kind of like, all right, that's a nice little quote. But that's kind of the way that it's broken down. The Cardinals offense has really turned it on. And you look over the past couple of weeks, I don't know, you can pick your arbitrary endpoint and beginning point of the current streak, but they've been sort of that top 5 offense in a lot of the different categories over the course of what they've been doing the last 10 games. They're 8-2. I think even before that, as they were starting to maybe come out of it offensively against Milwaukee, what was so darn upsetting about that series is they were losing the games even though they were keeping it kind of close and the bullpen would blow it here. And it wasn't that they were playing as badly anymore, but nobody cares about that when you're as far below 500 as the Cardinals were. And be honest, before going into that Sunday game against Milwaukee, did you think they were maybe a game away from firing some pretty prominent people? Because I thought it could come at any moment in time. And for them to go on the run that they've gone on since has been nothing short of impressive, honestly.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say for the offense, finally, whatever it took, 40 or so games into it, they're starting to look like the offense that most people thought before the season. And still, look, as I'm looking, Paul Goldschmidt's OPS is still under 600. Nolan Arenado's is under 700, which isn't terrible, but still 3 homers. You got to think, I know we always say this, but when the weather gets warm, or maybe when the cicadas go away, I don't know. For people
It's
that
something like
aren't,
that.
yeah, for people, by the way, for people who aren't in St. Louis, the cicadas are just insane right now. They're the loudest I've ever seen in my entire life. It's absolutely crazy. But just kind of looking through, I mean, obviously Wilson Contreras is hurt, but Alec Burleson, he's hit pretty much the whole season. Mason Wynn has been very impressive. You have Ivan Herrera, Nolan Gorman, obviously had a big game in the first game of the I guess we'll call it a doubleheader. There was rain delays
Sure.
all over the place. Lars
Yeah.
Nootbaar. Um, there's some guys still that you want to get going here. Brendan Donovan would be one of those guys, but there's a lot of proven commodities and there's a lot of young talent. And look, when the Cardinals were really bad early in the season, I still thought there's no way this offense is going to be this bad. Now, I said they'd be a top 10 offense. So maybe I'm wrong there. So maybe it ends up being more middle of the pack. But there's just no way that over 162, unless this team, look, if they were to sell off, which I don't think is going to happen, okay, maybe they become a terrible offense. But I can't believe that when you look at the names on the back of the jerseys, that this is not going to be at least a middle of the pack offense. And we're starting to see that.
Yeah, that's what we thought originally, and I think the problem was just everybody slumping at the same time. I would make the case that Paul Goldschmidt is still going through it. For him to be a sub 600 OPS is not what you want, but because everybody around him is suddenly performing, it's not that glaring of a situation. Last 15 days, or is it games? Last 15 days, according to MLB.com, Cardinals ranked seventh in OPS and ninth in runs scored. So they've been that top 10 offense for the last couple of weeks. Is that something they can sustain beyond that? And keep in mind, like the majority of that, Wilson Contreras has been out. So I feel like that moment where he was injured and you knew it was going to be a long time before he'd come back was where I sort of said, yeah, I dipped below 50% today. Like, I don't know that this Cardinal team's making the playoffs. If I had to say today, probably not. And then they went on the losing streak and you felt vindicated there. But after 8 out of 10, like I'm right back around that 50% line where I could certainly see it. And I know that's funny because it's like, well, they're still below 500, and it's just one little run throughout a season. But also, they're like a game back of a wild card spot, maybe a game and a half if the Padres, I think they're beating the Reds tonight. But like that's in striking distance, and the Cardinals are by no means out of it. So I think what they've done over this 8 out of 10 stretch is that they've made it to where we're not talking about, well, if they trade this guy, what could they get? Maybe they like you're at least thinking in terms of this being a 6 month season instead of a 6 week season. Like for a while you kind of thought that it might be, which is I think good news for Cardinals fans. I know some people were, and this is a little backwards to me, but almost rooting for chaos and the bottom to fall out so they could fire people and maybe get a fresh start. But I think there is enough talent on this team with the number of guys that they've got like 5 or 6 guys with a 700 OPS now, and none of them are Arenado and Goldschmidt. So if it tells you about the depth of the lineup and what they thought it could be 1 through 9, I think that's kind of what you've been seeing recently. And maybe it's something they can sustain, maybe not, but at least they're going to keep it interesting.
Exactly. And at minimum, I think you need to give the Cardinals credit for righting the ship, for not quitting. And I think you could make the argument, when I say a team quits last year, I mean, clearly guys aren't showing up and trying to lose. But I think collectively last year, it was a horrible, especially a pitching staff. And you can make the case that they kind of mailed it in. And not just the players, I mean, organizationally. And then look, when you trade everybody at the deadline, you literally are mailing it in. And you have Adam Wainwright making starts for his 200th win. It was a different deal last year. I do think, look, to me, Ali Marmol still needs to prove himself. He's still in early on in year 3, but he has steered this thing. Guys aren't quitting on him. I've said the whole time, look, I don't know if Ollie's going to be a good manager or not, but however you feel about Ali Marmol, it's still way more on John Mozeliak and the front office in terms of what happens to this team this year. And like you said, look, I know some people probably were or still are maybe even rooting for, hey, we need this team to fail to make wholesale changes. But do you really want to see that for 2 straight summers? Do you really want to have the last 2 months of another season not matter at all? And I will say this though, there might be some people in the comments that are saying, okay, okay, Charlie and Brendan, let's get all excited about a team
Is that how they
that's
sound?
5 games out. They're a game and a half out of the third wild card. Maybe they get in and they lose in the first round. And I don't even know what that voice is.
I think
Right.
that's how they
Look,
talk. Yeah. No, I don't I don't know.
no, that's somebody criticizing us. I get that.
Okay.
Listen, we all agree the bar has been lowered, but we've done 1,000 shows on that. We've complained and bitched for 1,000 shows. Right now, things are going well. So let's also not be such big haters. Like, look, they've had a dang good 2 weeks, and I hope it continues. So I'm not going to be the guy that focuses on all the negatives because we've done that for months and months and months. Right now, it's looking pretty good.
It is, and I think mm, again, just because the guys that the Nolan Gormans and the Lars Nootbaars of the world, Mason Wynn, you can throw in there as well. When those guys, along with Goldie and Arenado, are just absolutely doormats at the plate, there's it's just so noticeable throughout your lineup. But Nootbaar has been taking his walks. He made, you could say, maybe a season-changing catch today. I still cannot believe he tracked that down and made that play against the wall in right field. Like they're showing some very good signs. There's still some concerns for sure. The pitching is looking maybe more concerning in the rotation than it has for a while. They still don't know what they want to do with that fifth starter spot. But now maybe a day where, look, coming into this Orioles series, you're thinking, "I'll just win a game." Maybe the fact that they're able to sweep it and do it the way they did with the contributions from the bullpen in particular is suddenly that a unit that you're feeling better about. Like up and down the team, you can nitpick and find your spots that you're still a little bit concerned about. But then you could also make some arguments like, well, Jordan Walker's not even back yet. And what if he comes back and becomes the guy he was last year? And what if Wilson Contreras comes back at the All-Star break? Like there's enough here to where I think if you're inclined to do so, if you would like to be along for the ride and think, hey, maybe this summer could turn into something, I think the pieces are there and the record is even almost there now to where you don't have to squint too hard to see like, all right, there is some talent assembled here. Now, what are they going to do about it? How are they going to play? And then is this front office going to recognize that there still are holes on this team, and it would be incumbent upon them to fix them in July if the Cardinals are still in the mix at that point?
Yeah, and I think they will be. Look, it's also, and this is where I'm trying to be positive, and it sounds negative. You have to be really bad to not be in the mix. You know what I'm saying? That's why
Yeah,
last year was so rare for the Cardinals. And look at the teams ahead of them in the wild card. So right now, wild card is Braves, Cubs, Padres. But basically, the Cardinals are tied as of now. We're recording this at what 8:26 Central Time, but the Cardinals are tied with four other teams. One and a half. Excuse me, they're one of four teams. So they're tied with three other teams. One and a half games back. It's the Diamondbacks. It's the frickin' Pittsburgh Pirates. Cole
there they are.
Martinez's Pittsburgh Pirates. The Giants. So it's like, hey, these aren't world beaters. And again, I just want everybody to know that in saying this, nobody's saying the Cardinals are all of a sudden World Series contenders. Nobody's saying the Cardinals are a team that going to go on this amazing run. But I feel like we're at least seeing the team that we thought they would be. And remember, that's a team that most people thought was what? 82, 83, 84, 85 wins. Okay, maybe you're that team. But by the way, you're digging out of a huge hole though, right? They look like that team that's maybe 84 wins, but you got to dig out of a freaking hole of the first quarter of the season. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, like you can't ignore what the record was 9 games below 500 before they started turning things around because that's how they were playing. But I think we all looked at the lineup in particular. I know we keep harping on it, but we looked at that aspect and said, well, what are the odds of that staying the way that it was? Bottom five in virtually every category that matters when you're in the batter's box. I think we all kind of recognize there'd be a turnaround, but the question was, is it going to be that they play at we're the 15th best offense in baseball the rest of the year, that kind of pace? Or do they sneak back up and play a top 10, top eight pace to get them to 14th overall or whatever it ends up being? And like, even that could end up being enough depending on how much they get out of the pitching. But it's not something that should have anybody excited about, oh, this means World Series. There's still room for that. I think it would take very targeted moves at the deadline, though, in conjunction with if you had 25 questions about the team, like 23 of them being answered in a positive way between now and October, because there's a bunch of things that we could ask about. You could look down the list and ask about players and say, well, do you get a more consistent Gorman who gives you the power but less of the disappearing for weeks at a time? Does Goldschmidt rebound to even league average? Like you could ask a bunch of different questions, and most of them would have to be answered in a positive way. And you'd need some trades, I think, before we're going to call this team a contender for a World Series. But like you said, we've done the whole notion of the bar being lowered, and it just is what it is at this point. Let's see if they can get into a wild card. Might just be the summer that we're talking about, and I guess it's better than 71 and 91. So we'll talk about it and have to just let that be what it is, and then talk in the offseason about how they can get back to maybe where they've been in past years.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with Steven Matz. But right now, if we are looking forward to the trade deadline, you at least have a very obvious need in terms of the fifth starter. It's clearly not working with Matthew Libertor. I understand giving him a shot. I get it. And that first spot start, what did he go? 3 2/3, whatever it was, and he was
On
pretty
50
good.
pitches. Yeah.
Right. And then so the last I looked, when he pitched last, I was looking up his splits, and I believe his OPS against at the time for righties was over 900. And This is breaking news, Brendan. There's a lot of right-handed batters in
Yeah,
baseball,
there are.
so it's pretty easy to stack a lineup. I mean, most teams can stack a lineup of righties for damn near the whole freaking lineup. There's just look, Matthew Libator, he had a nice role in the pen. There's just no way you're going to be a successful MLB starter if you're allowing an OPS of over 900 to right-handed hitters. So they need to figure that out. I'm going to ask you what you think is going to happen, but also I think that was one of the issues there is it didn't just hurt the rotation, it hurt the bullpen. It was hurting you multiple ways. It was also creating these I'll call them 2023 starts because every start ended up being 3 innings, whatever it was. And all of a sudden, you're asking a ton from your pen. And now you have a pen without Libertor, who was pretty dependable for a while. So, what do you think of that spot? And what do you think the Cardinals will do or should do?
Yeah, and the frustration too with that is that you were basically volunteering to have those 2023 type of starts because you knew he was on a 50 pitch and a 60 and a 70 pitch count. Did somewhat okay in the game where he had 60 pitches, but then in the most recent one was 70, he got into trouble early. And when that happens and you know you're on a prescribed pitch count, it's not really possible to battle your way out of it like a Kyle Gibson might. He could give up some runs early, but can still save the pen by going six. We've seen that from him before, and that you were setting up Libertor to fail essentially. And that's my problem with it. I don't know that we know for sure that Libertor can't ever be an MLB starter. The comparison I would make is that the couple times they've let him try, it's always like he's building up as he goes, which is never really a good way to do it. And they're going to go, well,
That's
in
fair.
between, he can also be a reliever, and then he's going to come back on short rest. Like that's what just happened within his. He's done 3 starts. The second one was after 3 days of rest, and I know he only pitched to like 4 batters, but there's just something about aren't you trying to get the most out of a player, a young player that could be developing, ascending, and you're going to continue to put him into these spots? To me, that's counterproductive. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But the point you bring up about the splits, honestly, built up or not, that's a problem. And so that would maybe be the thing that would lend me to believe it's not as much like a Jordan Hicks when the couple times the Cardinals let him try to start, it was okay, yeah, build up as you go, and then 2 weeks later we're going to punish you for that and say, well, he can't go deep enough. It's like, well, you were handcuffing the competition the whole way, and then he goes to the Giants, and it's like, oh, this he is able to do this with a decent runway and a little bit of patience. So but the righty thing is fair, and it's actually I was looking up the splits as you were talking. It's been even worse than that now. It's a 1044 OPS against right-handed batters and a
Ooh.
361 OPS against lefties. So he's been unbelievable getting lefties out. It would seem to me that that's an eighth inning setup man or a closer that could throw the ninth inning if you've got lefties that are coming up. Like that's the kind of role that his splits suggest that Matthew Libertor could serve. A little tougher in the 3 batter minimum era of Major League Baseball, but yeah, that's an issue that they're going to have to correct. And yet it seems as though he's going to start on Saturday against the Cubs, Charlie, in those brand spanking new, the Lou uniforms for the City Connect. He's going to be on the mound, it seems, because I saw some tweets from reporters before today's not doubleheader, but 1.3 header that he was doing like a starter's bullpen session ahead of what would be a Saturday start. Even though Ollie Marmol, the last time he started, sounded like, yeah, we're really going to reevaluate. And by reevaluate, we mean pick somebody else. But what kind of indictment is that on the Cardinals? And they're confident in the AAA, in the rotation down there in Memphis, half of which are on the 40 man anyway. Isn't that why you have a 40 man to bring up guys when you have a need? I'm not saying Libertor is going to fail on Saturday, and I'm not saying that he can't be an MLB starter. I just think the way that they've handled this, it's like every single start is, well, we're going to reevaluate. And then there he is 5 days later, still in the rotation. You have a whole group of guys in Memphis. Are none of them good enough? And if that's the case, if you don't have confidence that they could come up and give you 5 innings, 3 runs, then what does that say about the development as far as pitchers are concerned in this organization, which is something we've harped on already, and I think we know what it says, but it's basically a signal that that might not be changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that's fairly obvious there that they have no other options. And I'm wondering, I know we always hear about, oh, you can't make trades or whatever until a certain time of the season, but the name that comes to mind, it's not a sexy name, but go back what? Is it now 3 seasons? Can't we find the 2024 version of Wade LeBlanc? You know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
a body, just a major league body, somebody he could throw to a 5 ERA. Again, and I'm talking about for a month or 2. Whenever Steven Matz comes back, whenever you actually could make a trade, let's say, and add a a legitimate MLB starter, but there's gotta be some type of Wade LeBlanc that you can pick up for a month or so, I would think. That gives you a much better chance to win some games, or doesn't put you in a hole where you're trying to get 18 outs from your bullpen every time Liberatore starts.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And the fact that they willingly have done that to their bullpen over and over, knowing that Liberatore's on a pitch count, and that if anything goes wrong and he's not particularly efficient, it compounds the problem. And they've been doing that during a stretch where they've had a lot of games in a row without off days. Like now they're obviously getting the off day tomorrow. They had one last Thursday, but in the midst of their stretches before that, they really didn't get time off. And so it was just a weird process. One name you mentioned, I don't know if anything's become of him yet. I don't think I'm googling. Don't think he's been picked up. And maybe kind of gross to pick up the castoffs from this team, but like Brad Keller of the White Sox was designated. And if you're
Mhm.
talking 5 innings, 3 runs, I think that's probably his middle name. Just
Yeah.
a guy that there's not a lot of risk. Granted, what does it admit publicly about your organizational pitching depth if you are scooping up Brad Keller, the castoff from the Chicago White Sox? Like he wasn't good enough for them, and you've got a whole Memphis rotation, guys with big league experience, and you're going, no, 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 you guys stay there, look pretty in Memphis. We're gonna go for Brad Keller. I mean, that probably doesn't send a great message, but it might just be true. Like if you've gone this long and you don't believe in what you have down there to the extent that you're just reluctantly throwing Libertor every 5 days, it's not fair to him because he's not built up like a starter. It's not fair to Ollie Marmol because he's losing one quality relief pitcher. Although John King, as a lefty, has really stepped it up. But it's just like a bunch of different factors where you go, is this really what they're doing? Every single time Libby starts, the post game happens, and you think, okay, they're going to make a different move, and then he's right back out there. I hope he shoves on Saturday so that we can really get confused. But it does seem a little bit curious the way that it's gone the last couple of turns through.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well. But it's funny. You said if you were to sign basically Brad Keller, that you're admitting defeat almost, or you're admitting that the plan is not working in AAA. But we know it's not. You know what I'm saying? At this point,
But
look,
then you'd actually
it's
have to DFA Michael McGreevy. Like you just have to do it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I get
Not
that.
DFA.
But
He's
like
not even on the
everybody
40. Really.
knows. I mean, it's the old saying, actions speak louder than words. It doesn't matter what any of them say. It doesn't matter. And look, I understand you have to play the PR game. It doesn't matter what Ollie says. It doesn't matter what John Mozeliak says in this sense. We all know that when we've seen now, I'm looking at his game log, that Libator has made what 3 starts. He hasn't gone more than 3 2/3. He's allowed 4 earned runs in his last 2 times out. We know if you roll that guy out again, that's a clear message that this is our best option we have right now. We actually think that right now that's still a better option than the guys in AAA. So at look, I I really don't think like I think everybody has to have a certain sense of arrogance to have a big job. Like I think John Mozeliak has a healthy amount of arrogance. I do, and I think that's one of his issues actually over the last couple of years. But I don't think he's so arrogant that he wouldn't go get the team help because it's a bad look. And I know you were just throwing that out there, but like it's so obvious. It's so obvious that they have nobody else.
Yeah. Would you want to know the funniest possible name that I could come up with that is maybe not all too unrealistic? It's Zach
Can I
Greinke
guess?
would be the funny. Well, no,
Oh
not now
God.
because I told you. Wouldn't that be
But I mean,
funny?
anybody. Like, and by the way, again, I started this conversation with saying, find me the 2024 version of Wade LeBlanc. This is
Yeah.
not going to be a sexy name. It's going to be a 31 to 36-year-old dude who was probably good 7 years ago, but like you said, could give you 5 innings and allow 3 earned runs most of the time out and just give you a shot.
Yes. And by the way, a little bonus if it were Zach Greinke, and the reason I bring him up 4 days ago, there's like a MLB trade rumors was talking about he was throwing and like keeping active. He's not on the team. He's 21 strikeouts short of 3,000. If I'm Zach Greinke, I am picking up the phone and just trying to get any job to get to 3,000 Ks. But he's also maybe not that kind of guy that cares about that. I don't know. But how funny would that be after all the years if the Cardinals were to sign Zach Greinke and he pick up K number 3,000 as a Cardinal? Just like It would just be bizarre to me, so I want it to happen.
Okay, because we're having fun now. I mean, we've had fun the whole time, but now I have another name for
Cool.
you. Who's
Okay.
the guy who's the guy that's always linked to the Cardinals because he had this beautiful home somehow in Missouri that I think he donated to a charity? Cole Hamels. Has Cole Hamels officially retired? Because for like 10 straight years, everybody said Cole Hamels was going to be a Cardinal because I think his wife might be from, do they live in Springfield or something? And they had a huge house and then they gave it to a charity. I remember reading a story like that.
I don't know, but dude, he hasn't pitched in like 5 years. I don't think he's coming back. He
He hasn't
last
pitched
logged
in
a
5 years.
he last logged a stat in 2020, and he only pitched 1 game that year.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that's it, he's 40. I mean, but could he get you 5 and 3? Maybe, you know, like, that we're not asking a lot, and I've seen people say, "Hey, 44-year-old Rich Hill is still trying to he's still trying to find a job." But, like, again, multiple years ago or last year, he's at, like, an 8 ERA, like, you could probably just do a little better than that, but I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
know. It
know.
just bugs me. You know what I would do? You asked what I think the Cardinals will do is throw Liberatore on Saturday and keep kicking this can down the road. You know what I would do? If I wanted to go the route of just really going bold and trying to just maximize the vibes right now, you could be really risky and go Tink Hence. I don't even know if he's like pitched in the last couple days. I personally wouldn't do it, but if you wanted to, just having him make his debut against the Cubs, I think it's a national TV game in the City Connects to me would just be a recipe for a lot of entertainment value. So that's one path. The other fork is basically the mortal opposite of that. And it's actually what I think makes some sense. I've seen Andre Palante get outs as a big leaguer as a starting pitcher before. It's not sexy, but I think Andre Palante could get you 5 and 3 because he's going to walk three, but all of them will be erased on double play balls. And he's being built up down in Memphis. I'm not saying that that's your savior, but I'm saying like who's got a better shot to give you 5 and 3 right now, him or Libby? Libby might have a better shot to get you 7 and 1, but it's going to be one out of every 10 starts. And you're going to go, hey, can you bottle that? Whatever you did today, can you do it forever? And he's not going to be able to. Palante is just kind of going to 5 and 3. I think Palante, as long as he's built up and available, which he's been pitching for length in Memphis, I think that would be a short term answer that he's already on the 40 man. You could put Libby in the role that he's really useful in, and then John King could be your third lefty. He's pitching great. Like I think it improves the bullpen and stabilizes that fifth spot. So Palante, maybe you didn't expect me to say that, but that's my answer.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Let's go off the field because you mentioned the City Connect jerseys twice now.
Yeah.
So coming up this weekend, big series. You got the Cubs, you got the City Connects, and then also I think this is pretty cool. Now, when I was thinking about the Joe Buck and Chip Carey doing a game together, it clearly makes perfect sense that it's the Cubs because of their fathers, grandfathers, history there. I'm thinking I would do that game in like a boring game on a Tuesday, right? Versus the Pirates. But it's the Cubs, so you understand. I think that's really cool. And then also, so I want your take on that, but also the City Connects. I've never been a person that really cares much about jerseys. I really don't. Like I'll say, okay, that jersey's cool, that one isn't. I'm never going to get mad about it. It seems like some people think that it was kind of too bland. What's your take? I mean, I saw Mason Wynn said you probably could have done more, had a little more fun. Give me your opinion.
I don't know if it was real. I guess it probably was, but a screenshot of Instagram of Wilson Contreras saying not good. Like just basically saying there he didn't like him. I was not surprised at all with how they looked. Like if you were going to say the Cardinals are going to agree to participate in something silly and fun and a little bit off the cuff, like for instance, the Yankees aren't even getting City Connects. So you think about the classic teams and the classic jersey aesthetics. I think the Dodgers did one, but it's like basically just in Japanese and not that off the wall because they have, multiple star Japanese players, and that was probably an obvious branding opportunity. So you're going to do it. The Cardinals aren't going to say, no, we abstain. We're going to participate. But you can't do it without having the birds on the bat on the uniforms. That's evidently what Bill DeWitt III said. I think I saw that in a Hockman story where he said, that was the thing that he pushed for. So, okay, they're not really understanding the assignment. You're allowed to do anything you want. City Connect, do anything you want. And they view it just a very traditional organization, as we know, that you have to almost kind of keep certain tenants to your uniform aesthetic that you can't veer away from. Okay, so with that being said, I think they did almost about as much as you would expect them to do. I like the little, it's kind of like pinstripey with the rivers. It's kind of hard to see in pictures. I guess it pops up better in person, but you get red. That's kind of fun. The Lou, I get it. It feels like everything they do has to be Nelly related. I don't know. They like Nelly or John Hamm. It's going to be, that one of the two of them is going to be involved. Maybe John Goodman. Like they kind of have the old classics, the tried and trues that they go back to the well on. The hats, the STL, I think are fine. It's like a nod to 1921 or something before they had the interlocking STL. That's fine. But then I saw Polo Asensio, the Spanish broadcaster, post on Twitter from the team store. They have like an alternate City Connect cap that actually looks really, really cool and is a little bit different. It's got the fleur de lis on it. I think they should have leaned more into the fleur de lis, more into the city flag, more into the arch. They could have done a little bit more with that. But as it stands, I do think they're slick. I think they look nice. The little pinstripe down the side of the pants, the red stripe, I think looks nice. It's very, it is. It's bland. It was safe. It wasn't risky, which is all the things that I would believe that you would get in a Cardinals alternate uniform, knowing that Bill DeWitt III is still going to have his fingerprints on it and say, we have to kind of adhere to kind of what we've done around here for all of history. All that being said, I think they're inoffensive and solid. I'll give them like a 6.5 out of 10. I wouldn't have expected a thing to be different about them. They went very safe, and I think it's fine.
Yeah, as I look at them again as you're talking, I mean, I don't hate them. Again, I don't really care. Probably too much red. Now it reminds me of that Prince Charles painting that they unveiled a couple weeks ago that just
I saw
made
your
no
comments
sense.
on that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is funny. I know, and we can talk about Bill DeWitt's comments to Martin Kilcoyne. It is, and I know that was a couple weeks ago, but we didn't do a show last week. And I look, I like BW3, but it's so funny and it's so Cardinals that like we have to put the birds on the back. Like it's the one time that
There are
you're
no
allowed to
rules.
do something different. It's
Yeah,
just the one time you're just gonna wear it few games. And you even said then they had an homage to 1921. Like only the Cardinals will be like, we have a one-time deal to do
yeah.
something cool. We're not really gonna veer that far, and we're gonna honor something from 100 years ago. That's so Cardinals that I'm actually glad it happened because that's what the Cardinals do.
Yeah. No, it was. They were very predictable, I think, in the way it went down, which is again, it's like fine. They're gonna sell plenty of jerseys. I think they look I do like how they look. And I think there is an element of this too. Like when you think about other teams that have unveiled theirs and the public scrutiny of like, oh, this is hideous, this is heinous, this is no good. The Cardinals, there was no way that anybody was going to have that reaction. I don't think nobody was going to say, "Oh my gosh, can they even put that on a uniform?" It just doesn't make any sense. Like it's sensible within the aesthetic that it is. It's very very safe. They were not going to take risks with it. I think they do have the fleur de lis on like the shoulder or the sleeve patch, whatever it's called. That's nice. I think you could have been willing to do more, but now that we know what the answer is, it almost feels as though it couldn't have gone any other way. Very Cardinals, as you said.
Okay, so now that I'm really looking at it, though, I have to say I like the fleur de lis. They have some hoodies that look, and they have some hoodies with short sleeves with the fleur de lis. Looks pretty cool. I guess I hadn't until you talked. I hadn't seen the hat, and I'm gonna make a hot take here. I don't like the hat at all. The
The
STL
STL,
hat,
yeah.
and it looks like it's almost like bones. That looks stupid. And again, this is coming from somebody
It
who
does
doesn't
kinda
have
look
hot
like dog
takes.
bone.
I guess I never paid attention to the hat. I was focused on the jersey, which I thought was okay. The hat is stupid.
Oh, have you seen Polo Asensio? He posted the like from the team store, the the alternate hat. I don't know how else to describe it. I think it's just one that they're selling. Maybe they wear it during batting practice. Maybe they don't wear it at all. But it was a few days ago. I'll find it and send it to you because it's got the arch and the fleur de lis and STL. It's got the Lou on the side. It's got a lot going on, which I appreciate. If you get a Twitter DM, will you get it quick? I guess that'll be the way I'll send it to you. So,
Well, I'm
like,
gonna
that would
look
have
up.
been my thing,
Yeah.
is been be more or you can just go to Polo's page and scroll down. Be more willing to do something a little bit off the wall, and if it doesn't go well and people don't like it, then so what? But I think they just are so in their heads about making sure that they don't do anything, they don't step out of bounds, that's kinda how you end up with with the STL. I don't know how the STLs will look in person. It to me not really offensive on screen, but maybe they'll be okay. Maybe they'll be terrible. I don't know. You like
Okay.
the other hat? Decent.
I like it better. I don't love it. Like, I could see how they don't wanna wear that on the field, but
It's
I
a little
see how
much.
it's maybe a cooler cap for the kids to wear around town.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
almost think you don't
I'll be
need the
honest.
STL on that. You could just do fleur de lis, you know?
Okay.
I don't know.
So again, this is coming from somebody who, as I said earlier, I don't really care about the uniforms as much as a lot of people. The more I look at the jersey, the more I'm saying it's okay. The
It's
more I
fine.
look at the hats, the more I think they're
You're
bad.
upset. You're upset.
Not
Okay.
upset. I mean, I don't care, but they're not good.
Well, this has been your uniform talk. I know people were waiting for us to weigh in before they made their purchase decisions, and so now they're going to be able to get that done.
Okay, let's go back about what 10 days or so. The BW3 comments to Martin Kilcoin, I put it on my YouTube, and a lot of people, the funny thing is, this is where I have a tangent before I even make my
Love
point.
it. Yeah.
I always find this funny about how media is consumed. So, for example, Martin does that interview, long interview. I think it's 27 minutes long. The first 20 or so minutes are all about stadium funding, which is
Yeah.
pretty interesting if you're into that. Now, you got to really sit down and think about it, and it's kind of a lot of numbers. But if you're into that type of thing, it's not something you hear from a lot of ownership groups to really tell you what's going on. And then the end of it, maybe just 5 6 minutes, I don't know, was BW3 talking about this team, and the quote that got everybody going was basically saying, and he brought this up himself. He said, I'm paraphrasing,
Yeah.
but I chuckle when folks say, "Oh, we got to not show up to send ownership a message." And he goes, "Look, we just take the revenue from the ticket sales and put it right back into the team." And and this is not maybe interesting to folks, but like Martin put that on the radio, it was on Scoops with Danny Mac, it was a bunch of different places. But then until I took that one, I think it was a minute and 45 seconds, and put it out on Twitter, that's when everybody went crazy about it. Like, it's just weird that like a really interesting tidbit can be 23 minutes into an interview and nobody will write about it or talk about it. You almost have to give people, you literally have to just put it on a platter for people. That's true. It just really is. You have to
Yeah,
put it on a
because
platter for people.
and also there is maybe and this is a little inside baseball, but there might be a sense of like once it's out there that public, it's not like it's being hidden within somebody's podcast. And I don't want to step on his toes because maybe it's, you know, once it's out there, people kind of feel like it's more fair game to maybe pick up on it rather than be the one to publicize it if it's not their original content. I don't know if that's maybe part of it or not. But like once Charlie does, it's like, all right, this is in the ether now. People are talking about this, people can weigh in. I eventually weighed in, and the reason it took me so long was because I needed a Cardinal off day because I'm doing podcasts about every game and needed an off day to talk about it. But no, it is kind of interesting, and I think you can see that a lot of places. Like there will be things that get reported, the Nolan Gorman popcorn thing, for instance. Like I know that John Denton wrote about it once, and then like 3 weeks later it appeared in something different, and then that's when I saw like everybody talking about it. And of course JD was mad, like I wrote about this 3 weeks ago. But like that's just sometimes the way it goes. I don't know if there's always any rhyme or reason to it, but um certainly, wanted to make sure Martin got his credit because I thought it was a really good and interesting interview with kind of a lot of insight into all that other stuff. But yeah, the part where I think BD3 stepped on it a little bit there, stepped in it, I should say. That's it didn't sound good. The soundbite didn't sound great, even if it didn't have like any nefarious undertones intended. It sort of looks like you're kind of looking down on the fan base. And there was some parts in there about the hardcore fans versus the casual fans, the implication being like you have to keep coming to the stadium or you can't really consider yourself a hardcore fan. Like I think generally he does a really good job. I think that was a moment where the soundbite got him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. By the way, I'm giving all the credit to Martin. And that's where I was like, dude, why aren't people talking about this? I mean, this is
You got to have a
really
YouTube
interesting.
mind. You gotta have a YouTube brain to be able to bring it out of it, because
Right,
you
but I
saw
mean,
you said, "Oh my god, this is something," and nobody else really did until you thought to repackage it in that way.
but
That's
the
what it
next
is.
3, 4 days that's all anybody talked about
I
surrounding the
know.
Cardinals throughout that whole
Yeah.
weekend, and this is yet another tangent, but it kinda reminded me, not exactly, but I remember I was covering a Rams game years ago during the Jeff Fisher era, and somebody can look this up. I think it was against, don't get mad at me, I think it was the Washington Redskins, but it could have been
Can't
another
say.
team. Maybe it was a
Okay.
different team. No, you know what?
You
No, it
just
would have
wanted
been
it to
it
be
would
them. Okay.
no, no, no. Here's why I think it was the Washington football team. So what Jeff Fisher did was, I don't know if you
Oh,
remember this
yeah.
story.
I already know where you're going with
He
this
for the captains, he
now.
rolled
Yeah.
out every player that they drafted in the RG3 trade. Okay? And this
Yes.
is this is the funny part, folks. I promise there's gonna be a payoff, although it might not be as good as I think. The most hilarious thing about it, this is in front of thousands of people there, millions of people watching, Brendan. Nobody picked up, not one person, not one media member picked up on the fact that Jeff Fisher purposefully, for the captains, rolled out everybody in the RG3 trade as kind of a little bit of a troll job.
Yeah.
I was in the locker room. This is why it was a road game. I saw Jeff Fisher go up to Jim Thomas, who at the time was, we all love JT, covered the Rams forever, then he covered the Blues. Jeff Fisher had to tell Jim Thomas what he
He's like,
did.
"Tweet it.
Think
Please
about
tweet
that.
this."
Think
Yeah.
about that. Jeff Fisher, I mean, look, I like Jeff Fisher. Wasn't the greatest coach here, but we've had worse. But like he did a cute little troll job and
Yeah.
nobody even picked up on it. And he had to go and fricking leak it himself to the media.
Yeah, because he wanted it to be talked about. Otherwise,
Yeah.
why would you go through the trouble of doing it? And I found the Jim Thomas tweet. Uh, the names are so funny. I know this is not a 2014 St. Louis Rams podcast, but if you just think about the names in that trade and how it wasn't really that big of a troll because they got mostly just some random guys and a couple of known players. Kind of a funny aspect of that anyway. That's the best
So,
tangent we've ever had though.
I mean, are we talking like Alec Ogletree? Who was out
Ogletree,
there?
Ogletree is one.
How many
How many of them
guys?
can
How
you
many
name?
guys?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the Jim Thomas tweet. 6 were named.
So that wouldn't be Jason Smith, right?
No, 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 no.
Was
Um,
it like Tavon Austin?
no, 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 no. The Rams actually traded up to get Tavon Austin. I can't believe 10 years later we're talking Rams on this
Well,
podcast, but I
I
I
like these
kinda
type
like
of questions. No,
it's
there's some
kinda fun.
Rams
People
fans.
like this.
They like
Yeah.
this stuff. So Ogletree,
Yep.
okay, was it like Joe Havenstein or something?
No, but there is an
Rob Havenstein?
offensive lineman. I assume this has to be it's Robinson. That has to be Greg Robinson, right? I would
Okay, so Greg
think.
Robinson was what, was he the number 2
He
pick?
was number 2 the
Huge
next
bust.
year, I'm gonna say. Oh, yeah, big time. How about Jenkins? A little bit
Okay,
of a
so
bigger name,
Janoris Jenkins.
I
Name
assume.
positions if you can, then
Okay,
I'll guess.
defensive end. He's a defensive end. This guy was around for a while, this one, and
Brockers?
played for Michael Brockers.
Okay.
Running back, not that big of a name, and I think had some issues after off the field
Trey
issues after
Mason.
his no, but
Not Trey
that's
Mason.
also true. No,
Isaiah
uh,
Peed?
no, I don't know. Did he have off the
Oh,
field issues
oh,
after?
oh, Zach
You're
Zach
there's
Stacy.
only one more. Yeah, Zach Stacy,
Oh god,
and
they've had
then,
a dude,
and
Zach
there's one more.
Stacy.
Wide receiver who was accidentally shot at one point.
Dude,
I mean,
when you start to name, and you didn't, by the way, you didn't even mention Janoris Jenkins, who has his
no,
own
he's yeah.
issues. Okay,
Mhm.
so wait, a wide
This guy
receiver,
was shot, but I don't think it was even his fault. I think wrong place, wrong time for this guy.
and he was shot?
I think so. I'm gonna look this up.
It's not the dude from Appalachian State, right? Was it Brian
Um,
Quick?
not Brian Quick. No, this guy went to West Virginia, it looks like.
Oh, okay, so that was,
It was not
Stedman
Tavon
Bailey.
Austin. Stedman Bailey was the other one.
Okay,
That
this is a
Jeff
random
Fisher
tangent.
we spent 5 minutes on this, and I couldn't be having more fun
Oh,
than
me
I'm
too.
having. Here's the thing,
So
there's, like there's people that have dropped off and they're not even watching anymore, but the
No,
people who are, I think that this is for them. So this is fine.
no. Listen, we do this on the radio every once in a while because
Oh yeah.
I have kind of a good memory, but, like, I like going back, and because you said this, I promise we'll get back to baseball, folks. But Stedman Bailey, his college statistics here, I'm finding them right here. I think he had some insane amount, like 30 touchdowns in college his senior year. I'm trying to find it for you.
Well, I hope
Stedman
you do.
Bailey. Okay, hold on.
I
Stedman
thought he
Bailey,
was gonna end up being
college.
a guy. Oh,
Remember he had really good hands, right?
maybe. I
Okay,
don't
let
know.
me find. I
I
promise. I promise,
honestly
folks. Just give me 1
Here,
second.
while you look, let me answer a question that I didn't answer before about Chip Carey and Joe Buck. That's coming up
Okay,
on Friday night. I totally glossed over the question. You asked me to it once, though. Great interviewing technique. I'm actually
hold
really
on real
excited
quick.
about this. Oh my gosh, I was giving you the cover you needed. I
Well,
was
I
giving
found
you
it.
the time. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Stedman Bailey in 2012
Yeah,
with, West Virginia had 25 receiving touchdowns.
it's
So
pretty
I believe
good.
that was Geno Smith, right?
Probably.
25 receiving touchdowns. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. We'll get off the Rams and tell me about Joe Buck.
I like it. I like you. I have to interrupt this Joe Buck take for some info on Stedman Bailey's 2012 collegiate touchdown total. I think it's really cool. Obviously, Cardinals Cubs makes it more interesting. The Cardinals riding in on a winning streak makes it more interesting. But Joe Buck hasn't been in the local TV Cardinals booth since 2007, I think it is. Like it's been a while. He's had this whole career. He's not even doing baseball now, but was the voice for the World Series for, like my generation. Just that just ubiquitous with the World Series for so long. And I think there's a little bit of interest from him to maybe like career twilight toward the end, maybe do something like that a little more often because he's talked about how he doesn't really miss baseball, but what he misses is like the grind of being with a team and doing the bus trips and doing all that to where like you're actually ingrained with the team, which is something he didn't get to do with Fox when he was just doing one game a week or just doing the World Series. So I don't think he really misses that. I think he misses like the relationships that you can build when you're in that broadcaster role with the local team. I don't know how many years down the road it would have to be, but I bet that's something that he would always think could be interesting later. But anyway, I think Joe Buck is fantastic, so I'm excited for Friday.
Yeah, I'm a big Joe Buck fan, and I don't know if I'm disagreeing with you, but here's what I'm saying. I don't remember his contract. I think it was released. I think Joe Buck's making what, like $75 million over 5 years, whatever it is
Oh
for
yeah.
ESPN. And think about that gig. You're doing a great game once a week on a Monday with Troy Aikman. You can fly in private and fly out. So you're gone for 1 or 2 days. You can be back with your family the entire rest of the week. You're going to cool cities each time, big time NFL games. You're staying at the Ritz or the Four Seasons. If I'm Joe Buck, I have no want to ever go back to the grind of everyday baseball. But if I could do 5 games a year, if I could do 5 fun games a year as kind of a novelty, keeps me in the game. Maybe it's games I'm already in St. Louis anyway. I think he has a place in Cabo that he goes a lot. I think a couple years ago he was on that Manning cast, doing it from Cabo. So if
Yeah.
I'm Joe Buck and you have that money and you got look, he's got kids and then he has younger kids now as well.
Yeah. No, I
So
hear you.
just
That's a
just
grind.
give me 5 games or three,
Yeah.
whatever it is, couple games.
No, he'll never probably do a full season. But like I also wonder too, like once you've done it all, is there any just satisfaction in especially it would probably have to be the right circumstance too for him to even be involved more than a 5 games. Like the manager is someone he's really tight with, or you know what I mean? Like just the broadcast partners, whatever. But I just think that it's cool to hear him talk on different podcasts about how like that's the thing that he appreciated about baseball. And like when you have everything else in the world and you're doing the biggest game of the week and all the things you just said in the NFL, it can be fun to maybe reminisce on a podcast and say, I kind of really miss that. But then maybe the unspoken part is I'm never going to go back to having to do that because I am in a very very fortunate spot with the gig that I have. But I think he does an awesome job and people, don't like him because they hate my team and all this stuff where they just don't understand like how it goes, how it works when you're in that national gig. And I think when you hear him talk out of any other context, he's like really down to earth and really kind of an interesting, introspective guy. So anyway, I think it'll be really good. I think I'm expecting good things on Friday, and I'm sure that him and Chip will deliver.
Yeah, and I'm speaking for Joe Buck now, but if I were him, if I had done I mean, did he do 20, 30 World Series?
A
Whatever he
bunch.
did a lot.
Yeah.
So if you've done 20 plus World Series, the top of the line for baseball, to me, if you're not gonna do that, I would rather do something like if I was him, I'd probably have more fun doing one of these alternate broadcasts. Like maybe they want the broadcast for an all-star game or for the World Series on the secondary channel where some guys can sit around in jeans and a button-down shirt and just kinda almost, sitting around drinking beers and talking about like that. I would enjoy something like that as opposed to putting the suit back on and getting up in the booth. Again, 3, 4, 5 times a year I think is fun, but I would wanna do more like the Manning cast stuff, like kinda do something different.
Yeah, or if you're Joe Buck and you can kind of have opportunities come your way. I know he did a little bit of golf there for a minute, like that. Just do a different sport. If you're so inclined and it makes you happy and brings you satisfaction, he could probably just kind of pick his spot in some ways and just be doing that and just to say he did it. Like again, you can only be on top of the world for as long as you are, and then it's like, okay, what else? What can I do different to keep it interesting? Which, like you said, that you're all about the accommodations. You come from the local TV world, and you didn't even want to do local sports TV anymore after the Rams left because that was kind of the cushy part of the gig. So I know like how you think, and that everything you said about Joe Buck there made a lot of sense.
Okay, I was gonna end the show, but because you
I
brought
know
that
you
up,
were. Had to take a
I like
shot.
to be no, no, I like to be very honest. When I came to St. Louis, I was working in Lansing. But look, I was covering Big 10 football, Big 10 basketball. Like it was pretty dang fun. Michigan State, Tom Izzo, we're covering Michigan football. You're watching games against Ohio State and Wisconsin and whatnot. But when I got the job in St. Louis, I was most excited about covering the Cardinals on an everyday basis and the Rams. And I don't dislike hockey, but I'm not a hockey guy. So yes, when the Rams left, like when I look at the sports landscape now, and people might get mad at me for saying this. No, I got out also because I wanted a better schedule and all that. But like when I came here, covering the Cardinals nonstop, and all those Rams trips were home of the Rams. That was really fun, even though the Rams sucked. Now, if it's more Cardinals and, a Blues team that's not making the playoffs,
Right,
and
that's the
it's
thing.
an MLS team, which me personally, look, I'm happy for them. I don't have a ton of interest. The Battlehawks, again, I'm happy for them, but I'm not hugely into spring football. So
Not on
so
the AJ
yes,
McCarron beat. Okay, got it.
no,
Hates
I'm
St.
rooting
Louis.
for
Got it.
them. I'm rooting for them. I'm just saying, look, this is an obvious statement. The NFL is the big boy on the block. And
I
look,
know.
I'm not trying to get back into that. But when you as a city lose the NFL for the second time and maybe the last time ever, I
In the
mean,
way
that
that
is
it
a
happened.
freaking yes, it's
Yeah.
a dagger. It's a dagger.
Yep, you're right. Thanks for bumming everybody out at the end. But you're
Okay.
100% right, though.
Well, then we won't end there. I'll let you
Don't
what do
say
we
it.
say? Open your notebook
I
and
don't have it.
and empty it. Empty your
No.
notebook.
What do you want? Ask me a question. That's so lazy. I don't know.
Well, no, you're at
The
no, it isn't because no, you're at the games. I'm not.
this week I kinda wasn't as often. So, it's been a busy week, Charlie. It's been a busy
Okay, how
week.
about this?
Yeah,
How about this? The Sonny Gray thing. Some people are saying, "Oh, be a tough guy, fight
that's
through
stupid.
it." I get that a little bit. Like, I don't want
How?
hey, I don't want hold on. I don't want the George Kirby comments. Remember that? Remember what George Kirby said a couple years ago?
Oh, vaguely, I remember it being kind of a firestorm. What was his angle?
He said something like he didn't wanna go back out there after whatever it was, 6 innings, 80 pitches, blah,
Number
blah,
of
blah.
pitches.
I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not saying this is the same thing. Look, to me, guys also know their body, they know their arm. I'm okay with just if a guy thinks he's done. Now, if I was done, I probably wouldn't tell people that though. I'm just being honest. I probably wouldn't say that, but he's being honest.
Yeah, and Ollie said he's done. He's done. Like when Ollie gets asked about it first, and then we go to Sonny, so it had already be said. But Sonny Gray is just like a different cat. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks and what's going on. And if you think a certain way about it, then so be it. I think 31 pitches in that inning and just understanding his body and not wanting to get hurt, that's part of it. But also, that he was not as sharp with his location in that previous at bat and didn't want to compromise himself and put him in a spot. No, I don't have one shred of thought that that was like that, like he should have gone out there and been Bob Gibson. I think that's stupid. If you're saying that, I think that's dumb.
No, I'm not. 31 pitches in an inning. Miles Michaelis laughs at that. He's like, "Dude, I'll throw 42." He's like, "I'll throw 42 in an inning and then still go 6
With
somehow."
a smile on my face. Now that was the last inning and the way it happened too is a little demoralizing, and it's 90 degrees and it's the first time it's that hot. People just get so mad about like wanting to be mad about stuff and just on the lookout for somebody making an excuse. Can I harp on this? Like it's stupid. No, it was the
Oh, I
right
agree.
thing, and the bullpen came in and it was, whatever. No, I didn't think there was a problem with that personally.
I didn't think you would, but again, sometimes people are talking. I like to get your opinion. I'll never ask you again, all right? I'll never ask you again,
Yeah.
Brendan,
No, it was
okay?
good that you asked. We're supposed to be able to ask the questions, answer them, and fill time so we can get over an hour or at least close to it. That's the whole point.
There you go. And we're there, and you might be mad at me, but I'm actually because last week I was going to California for my kid's allergy, so it wasn't a vacation. I do have a vacation next week for the whole week. We may have to skip next week, but we'll be right back. Hey, by that time,
Where
the
are you
Cardinals will be
going?
in first place. We're going
Going
to
anywhere
Sea
fun?
Island, Georgia. Sea Island,
Okay.
Georgia. Never been.
All right. Well,
So,
here's the thing. Charlie will be taking it easy for a whole week. My channel doesn't sleep. Even when I go on trips, I was texting Charlie about this. I was in a wedding a couple of weekends ago and yet still found a way to post every day because I was storing them up and blasting them out. So youtube.com/ at bshafer12. Charlie is lovely, and we'll put the link in the description at the bottom of this video so that you can subscribe to my page as well as Charlie's.
I will, and just so you know, I actually do still work, but it'll be for the NASCAR page.
Oh, the real sport. Got it.
No, not the real sport. By the way, people, Kenny Wallace, we're having our best week ever because of that fight on Sunday. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Kyle Busch. It's blowing up. Then you have the Coke 600, and then you have the race in St. Louis the following week. So that'll be fun.
Oh
Okay,
man,
I'll
that's
shut
pretty
up.
soon. All right.
Yeah, it's June 2nd, whatever it is. Two Sundays from now. All right, Brendan, good stuff, buddy. Thank you, sir. And thank you, everybody, for watching, commenting, liking, subscribing. Please subscribe, put the show in your group text, put it on social media, share it. Let's grow this thing. Follow Brendan's channel as well. And we'll see you when we see you.